Ben Johnson said a naughty word in the Chicago Bears locker room after the win on Saturday night. And according to Green Bay Packers fans, he's a big meanie who needs to say sorry.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. On the show today, we're going to talk about the Ben Johnson F-word controversy that really feels like a stupid, dumb controversy, and why it's not that big of a deal, and why the pearl clutching from Green Bay Packers fans is pretty rich, coming from that fan base in particular. But we'll use this as an opportunity to talk about the escalation of this Bears-Packers rivalry, why that's a good thing, and where the line is there, where you do have to keep it under control. They certainly haven't crossed that line yet, in my opinion, but also you can't let it get too out of hand, or else it may start affecting the team on the field in these matchups. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And this all started after the Bears' victory over the Green Bay Packers in the post-game locker room speech. Ben Johnson was fired up and used the F-bomb a few times, which in and of itself, not revelatory, right? I mean, I think a lot of coaches swear in practice and in the locker rooms, and they try not to do it, super publicly per se, like at press conferences and stuff. There's a certain amount of, decorum and whatever that you don't need to be throwing them around just all willy-nilly necessarily. But in the locker room, given a post-game rally speech, no one has a problem with an F yeah here or there. But it got a little controversial, if you will, because Ben Johnson in the video posted right on the Chicago Bears Twitter account says, essentially they censored it out, but you can piece it together pretty quickly. He says, F the Packers, F them, effing hate those guys. And you're not going to find any Chicago Bears fans that had a problem with that. But as you might expect, Green Bay Packers fans had we're not thrilled with that. And I think we're particularly quick to pearl clutch here. Like there's a well-known Packers podcaster, live streamer guy from Cheesehead TV, Corey Banke, who tweeted out, that his tweet went viral on Bears Twitter. At least said, I know it's theater, I know it's entertainment. However, anyone who heads an NFL team saying F the Packers is a classless piece of S word. It's all fun and games, and now you made it personal. And that's where the pearl clutching begins, right? That's where it's like, come on, like what are we talking about here? Like, I think there are there's two specific aspects of this that are important to separate here. And I think there's the debate of using the F word in general on a Bears team with ownership in Chicago in particular that has famously not liked swearing. George McCaskey in particular has famously not wanted players and coaches and media to use profanity around him, certainly not around Virginia, but that's maybe a little different story when it's an elder, but someone her age, you want a sort of respect thing there. But in general, right, he has never been a fan of curse words. We've seen media members tell their own individual anecdotes of using a curse word and then being approached by McCaskey later and having to apologize and stuff. It's a very real thing within the Bears organization. But Ben Johnson was asked about that very thing the next day at his press conference, or maybe it was that night. I can't remember which day now. And he said, they kind of asked, you said that stuff is George McCaskey. Does he know about that? Is he on board with that? And he said, yeah, I don't like that team, and me and George are on the same page. So, Ben Johnson's not breaking any Chicago Bears rules that he's not allowed to do. All it comes down to then is okay, he specifically said, F the Packers. And that's where Packers fans all of a sudden feel like that's the line of taking it too far. Of you're allowed to not like Green Bay, I guess, but apparently using that one word is crossing the line. And people were pushing back on that particular tweet. And he made the point of well, it's because Ben Johnson is the face and leader of the organization and speaks on behalf of the Chicago Bears. Because I would be very quick to point out that a couple of years ago now, I don't remember what year it was, at Soldier Field, one Aaron Rodgers scored a touchdown and went up to a Bears fan at the end zone and said, "All my effing life, I still own you." And that's okay, apparently. That's nothing wrong with that because Aaron Rodgers isn't the head coach. Instead, he's the quarterback and not only the face of the team at the time, but one of the faces of the NFL and one of the most famous, recognizable faces in the National Football League. Well, it's fine if he does it. But if the head coach, if Matt LaFleur had said that, or Ben Johnson says it, like, oh, all of a sudden, then it's a problem. Like, come on, let's be real here. It's this kind of pearl clutching is so rich coming from Green Bay Packers fans in particular. Like, first of all, this is a grown man sport. Like, the things that players are saying to each other on the field is far much worse than that. There are a lot of things said on a football field that you can't say on TV, you can't say on radio. Technically, I think there's not an FCC rule against us saying naughty words on the podcast, but we try and be a family-friendly show for people that might be listening with their kids. And if you made it this far, I'm not going to say the F word. I'm just going to keep saying F. I mean, I say it in real life, but it's not on the show. But like this is the National Football League. These are grown adult men. It's not only grown adult men's, the biggest, fastest, and strongest grown adult men's with the most emotion and testosterone and sometimes HGH and steroids flowing through them on the field. And we're going to get upset about an F the Packers, right? Like, there's a line somewhere in there, right? Like, if we can all acknowledge that there, because it's one thing to say, well, sticks and stones break my bones, words can never hurt me, right? Like, but like if someone was like specifically threatening harm, you know, if he said, let's break the Packers' bones, or, you know, I mean, that's kind of a silly example, but you know what I mean? If he's like, let's attack their families, right? Like, obviously there are very clearly some areas that are crossing a line, but saying F those guys, F the Packers, I don't effing like them. That's not across the line. Not in 2026, not in 2016, and it wasn't across the line in 1960 when George Halas was the Chicago Bears head coach. A shout out to Jack Silverstein, who's a great Bears historian over at Windy City Gridiron. He did a great story on Tuesday about how George Halas swore like a sailor and he used words that I'm not going to say on the podcast, but referred to the Cardinals as another word that starts with a C that you can't say on TV. I'm going to try and get away with saying he called them Packer pricks at one point. He referenced a book by George Connor from that team. And like, there's a lot of other examples of George Halas using swear words. One of which he called the ref a C word and got a 15-yard penalty. Like the quote from Johnny Lujak, the former Bears player, said, "Swearing was Halas's cup of tea." Like, this is not a new thing. It's not even a new Bears thing. It's not even a new Bears head coach thing. Like, this is just intense football professionals talking the talk after walking the walk. And that's the other key here, right? That we've had plenty of Bears players, especially, and coaches talk about beating the Green Bay Packers. You remember, was it 2 years ago, Justin Jones, the defensive tackle, in like June or July or May, it was like OTAs, said something about, yeah, we're going to beat the Packers. And of course, they could never walk the walk to back up talking the talk. Ben Johnson, I guess he did, to be fair, he did say about beating Matt LaFleur twice a year before he did it with the Bears, but he had done it with the Lions, right? Like, he had beaten Matt LaFleur with the Lions, and that was him. He kind of walked it first, then talked it for the Bears before he then now has walked it for the Bears. So, I mean, I guess we can get caught up in the nuance and the nitpicking there, but the point is, like, he's saying this after beating them twice, right? It's not like, oh, you're losing and you're mad because you lost and say, oh, screw those guys or whatever. Like, no, he won, and he earned it. He absolutely earned it, and he's turning up the intensity on this Bears-Packers rivalry. And for all the pearl clutching about it, I think this is a very good thing, honestly, for both teams and both sides, but for the NFL in general. I'm not sure anybody loses right now from Ben Johnson really kind of escalating this Bears-Packers rivalry. We'll take a look at why that's a good thing and where there's also a line there too next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. But that's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one, remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place, without the hassle or the hidden fees. Because Gusto gives you unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. And they've got automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits that can save you hours every week. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. That's GUSTO, gusto.com/LockedOnNFL.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
So this is certainly escalating the Bears-Packers rivalry. Like, as much as we can mock Packers fans for pearl clutching and being so upset about Ben Johnson saying a bad word and him being a big meanie that should say he sorry for hurting their feelings, it is going to be bulletin board material for the Packers. I mean, to be fair, losing in the wild card playoff game is more than enough bulletin board material for them. Losing the last two Bears-Packers games at the end, they shouldn't have been any short of motivation to beat the Bears again next time anyway. But it's another little cherry on top for them, I suppose. But so, it does matter in that regard. But this escalation in general, I think, is good for everyone here. I think especially for the Chicago Bears. We don't care whether it's good for Green Bay or not. But this has been a one-sided rivalry for some time, a mostly one-sided rivalry since really the Lovie Smith era. I mean, I know Mark Trestman, gave him some potential. They, I guess, really won one game, and all the previous Bears head coaches only beat them once. It's been very one-sided in the last 15 years, right? And so that doesn't make for a really intriguing, fun rivalry when most of the time you feel like certainly Green Bay has been the favorite the vast majority of the time, and most of the time Bears are a little bit more of a long shot odds team. Every time they got a shot at it, there hasn't been too many games where it's zero chance. There's been a few of those, but still not the kind of back and forth that you like it to be. And so when Green Bay has been winning consistently for a decade here, now that the Bears have at worst even the playing field, if not perhaps surpassed. I mean, they did have more wins and beat them twice and won the division, etc. This is the time to stick it to them, right? This is the time to pile it on and say F those guys. This is the, I don't say the only time, but this is when you do it. Because in the past, you always went into Green Bay games thinking you had a chance, but you just feel like now you really truly know it and believe it that hey, you're going to win, right? Sometimes it felt like wishful thinking sometimes. Yeah, they could beat the Packers this week, but realistically, we always kind of felt it was little brother, big brother, right? Every once in a while, little brother could pull off the upset, if you will, but Usually, in the Matt LaFleur era, the Bears had not beaten a Packers team that started and finished the game with the same quarterback under center. Like Jordan Love had gotten hurt or didn't play in the previous Bears victories over the Packers. Like there was always caveats and, excuses or whatever to say, well, the Packers are still the better team, even if the Bears won that game because of X, Y, or Z. Like that was not the case on Saturday night. It was not the case, at least in the second of the two regular season games. The first one, all three games kind of came down to the end. But regardless, like this is absolutely a turning point in this rivalry. I mean, we still don't know for sure if Matt LaFleur is going to be the Packers head coach next season. It sounds like that's the plan, but they may change coordinators. They may lose their defensive coordinator. They may fire their offensive line coach. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the Packers kind of not blowing things up, but making some changes, not just because of the loss to the Bears, but that really being the straw that broke the camel's back there. Like the Bears are taking over in this rivalry a little bit. It's not to say they're going to dominate for the next 10 games in a row or whatever, but just like, hey, this is a two-way street now. So stick it to them. Like this rivalry being elevated and escalated and turned up is going to make sure that the Bears especially, but probably both teams, the Bears are going to be fired up to play their best games against the Green Bay Packers. And especially in a year like this year when it's this 18-week season. It's a long season. By the time you're getting to week 14 and week 16 when they play this year, right, you're kind of settled into the rut and the rhythm of like, all right, we're playing a team every week, and you tell yourself every game matters, right? And you get fired up, but over time, like you kind of telling yourself the same thing, and you lose a little bit of something as the season goes on. But like those Packer games, especially late in the year, like those are going to matter. You really don't like those guys. You don't like any of your opponents, but you really don't like those guys. And you really even like those guys less than the Vikings and the Lions too. Like that's been made very abundantly clear. Like that's always been the case, but it's different now because you've escalated the rivalry, right? For a while, the Packers escalated the rivalry. So you'd hate them more and more and more every time they beat you. But like now you get to play too, right? Now it's not just them playing and you're just kind of tagging along. Like now you're stepped up to the plate and you get a chance to swing back and punch back a little bit more. Like, and it's to be clear, this rivalry and this smack talk has been far from one-sided. I mean, Ben Johnson and the players talked about their comments from a number of Packers players in the week leading up to this game. I want to say Christian Watson was one of them. I'm spacing on the specifics. It's not important. Packers players were talking some smack about the Bears in the lead up to this game. So it's not as though all of a sudden the Bears decided to be the loudmouth bullies all of a sudden. And also you can't be the bully when you've been the team that's been getting your butt kicked. You finally punch back at the bullies. It's like, oh, you punched me. What the heck? And it's like, sorry, you've been beating me up for years and years and years. Like they can't be offended at this point. But it just makes it all feel bigger. Like the NFL needs rivalries. It means more when these guys don't like each other. And it's sports and it's entertainment. And I know that the Packers people were trying to say, oh, this crosses that line. It doesn't. Like it's saying, I don't like those uniforms, those guys. They're not saying those human beings. I'm sure there are people on the Packers roster that are friends with people on the Bears roster. And maybe LaFleur and Ben Johnson aren't huge fans of each other, but they're not. I saw an AI video of them like literally fighting at midfield. Like they're not punching and kicking each other and fist fighting and all that stuff. Like it's about organization and team, hating organization and team, as opposed to like, I don't think anybody hates Jordan Love's guts and thinks he's a bad human being who deserves concussions and pain, right? It's like, it's not, that's where you cross the line, right? And that's not where the Bears are. To say F those guys, it's just, if he had said, screw the Packers, I hate the freaking Packers, like, would anybody have been mad? Like, is it purely because he dared to use the F word instead of more flowery language, like more soft language? Like, that's why this all feels stupid, but it's all better. It's all better when this rivalry is better. And I think the one like caveat I'll give here is like, I would agree that this would be a bad look for the Bears if the Packers were a bad team, right? If you're punching down on a team and saying, yeah, I hate those guys, F those guys, and they're already sorry bad losers that are a 3-win team. Like if you're blowing out Green Bay because they suck, and then you're like, yeah, F those guys, that's a bad look, right? Punching down, I would agree, is a bad look. Like when Aaron Rodgers does it, when he was a Green Bay Packer and punched down, like that's a bad look. When you're kicking them, like they're already a bad team and they know they're a bad team. They're not on your level and you're still punching down. But because the Bears are punching up, or at least punching equal, That's why it's okay. It's like with comedians in comedy, right? Like you punch up with your jokes, right? You make fun of people and groups that have more power and more success, and you don't punch down and make fun of groups that are already, misfortunate and targeted, et cetera, et cetera. Like you punch up, not down, and that's what it feels like the Bears are doing here, right? They're punching up at the Packers. I mean, or at least now on the same level as the Packers, but the Packers have been up for a long time, so that's why they're punching up right now, because now they're at the same level. And if Green Bay wins 5 games next season and you're still saying F those guys, well, that's punching down, and that's when I would feel a little bit less chill about it. But for now, yeah, F those guys. We don't like those guys. Like the same thing with like Locked On Packers and Peter Bukowski. I very much love Peter as a person. He's a friend. We've spent time together, like hanging out. He's a good person, and I will always vouch for and support Peter Bukowski, the human being. Not a big fan of Locked On Packers and some of the things he says on that podcast. These things can all be true at the same time. So I could say F the Packers podcast, but not the guy himself. And I think that's kind of where it's kind of the line we have to walk here. I do think this rivalry escalation is good. It's fun. It's important. It can also go too far. And it's Ben Johnson's job to make sure that the emotional aspect does still stay controlled and in check. So we'll kind of take a look at what that looks like and why it is a small test for Ben Johnson as a head coach next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way, and there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make, and that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. With Quo, your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed, and it works right from your phone or computer, so you can keep your existing number and keep it rolling even faster. It's no surprise. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. So make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's quo.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between a busy workday, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule with 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays that you just pop right in, or even quick lunches you can throw in the microwave. And everything arrives pre-portioned, so less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive that free dessert. So this Bears rivalry is turned up in what I think is a good way. But if you keep turning it up too much, sometimes that can spill over into a bad way. And I think so far, Ben Johnson has done a really good job of towing that line really well. Like, I think F the Packers is walking right up close to that line, but not crossing it. And I think, having these guys fired up and using the bulletin board material from the Packers game, right? Like, you're on the positive, good, useful, meaningful side of the line. But they also come close to that line a little bit here and there. Like, you remember Saturday night kind of got lost in the shuffle with how the game finished, but before the game started, there was a pregame kerfuffle, scuffle, hullabaloo. Pick your disagreement, a gentleman's disagreement on the field, whatever euphemism you'd like to use. There weren't punches being thrown, as far as we could tell. There wasn't a penalty flag thrown, but from what came out of the Bears locker room, it sounded like in the pregame, right, the kickers and punters are out there trying to warm up, and the teams come out while they're warming up, and kickers and punters have to kind of stand extra far back. Evidently, like Torrey Taylor was trying to warm up some punts, and some Packers players were in his way, and then they weren't moving, and then he wasn't moving, and then they kind of were exchanging some words. I mean, it was in Soldier Field, so it's kind of like, hey, man, get off my turf. We don't really know who started it and who said what, but, the bench is kind of cleared. I mean, they were already standing anyway, but, a bunch of players kind of came and had to be separated, right? Like, that is not across the line yet, but it's coming close to that line. And it's important that Ben Johnson keeps them there, right? Like, you can't let these players get so emotionally overly invested in this game that they throw a punch or that they get some kind of unnecessary roughness penalty because they just hate the Packers so much and they just got to get it on. They just want to hit that guy. And then they do, but it hurts the team, right? That's the key here. There's two versions of crossing the line. There's crossing the line of like class and decorum where you don't want to you don't want to say something too horrible, but also you don't want to hurt the team by getting a penalty that affects you in the game. Because even in the pregame, like you can get pregame penalty. Like if there's a fight like that they can determine a side on, like they can throw a penalty and assess it on the opening kickoff. And that might not cost you the game, but in the middle of a game, you make a third down stop and then get a 15-yard penalty on top of that gives the other team a new first down. Like that kind of stuff can literally cost you the game. I mean, I think even during the game, there was like a time or two where there was a little bit of jawing. It never devolved into a full-on, scrum, but just little things here and there that they kept their cool, but they have to keeping their cool, like that. And that's something that I think is one of these like head coach duties that is still new for Ben Johnson, right? We know he's a great play caller, great offensive coordinator, and he's been generally good at the head coach duties, occasional clock management stuff here and there, but he's learning and he's figuring it out on the fly. But one of those head coach duties is fire up your players and make sure they're locked in and energized to go, but also knowing when to corral your players and bring them back down and make sure they don't get too overly aggressive and excited and emotional on it. And kind of finding that sweet spot is something that we're going to have to keep watching how Ben Johnson does that with this team. Generally, I think of this Bears roster as being pretty like solidly kind of calm, level-headed guys, right? Like Caleb Williams gets fired up, but like he's never getting on the field like overly emotional, right? But like DeAndre Swift, a little more soft-spoken, the offensive line, very soft-spoken. Cole Kmet's a little more soft-spoken. The receivers like Adunze, DJ Moore, soft-spoken kind of guys, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, even Jalen Johnson, a little bit more soft-spoken type of guys. So I think generally there's not a huge worry about this becoming a problem. Like I think somebody like CJ Gardner-Johnson would be that kind of guy, but he's not. I mean, he's kind of here for 1 year as a fill-in for Kyler Gordon, so that they're not going to play the Packers again with CJ Gardner-Johnson, and he wasn't out there on Saturday to be there. I think we saw Tyreek Stevenson at times let emotions get the better of him, but he's grown and matured a little bit. I think same thing with Brisker earlier in his career a little bit, but I think he's kind of come around to that. I mean, I'm trying to think of players that the closest thing to like a hothead type of player. I mean, I think Luther Burden has maybe a little bit of that in him, and I could see Colston Loveland also like in the right situation, just as a young guy, right? Really getting fired up and getting under somebody's skin. Like not that he has a temper that like is a recurring problem, but like he is 21 years old. Like he is the youngest guy out there. And when you're all 21 and you get really, the adrenaline's pumping and something big happens, right? I could see he could be a player that one time and one time only, could potentially lose his cool. I mean, apparently the troublemaker on the Bears roster is Torrey Taylor, like the punter. It's apparently the one who's at the center of the scrum we saw pregame. So maybe he's the only one they got to worry about. I don't know. It's fun to watch, and I want to see how Ben Johnson handles it. I also want to see how Ben Johnson handles when like there's going to be a lot of hype and excitement for these games in particular. So you can't let the other games feel like an emotional letdown as a result, right? Like when you make these Packers games everything, you can't let the next game feel less important by comparison, right? Like, especially in a season like this year, which it wasn't a problem, but when you went Packers, Browns, Packers, it could be easy to make the Packers games the most important games in the world. And then, well, by comparison, well, we're not trying as hard for Cleveland as we were for Green Bay. So then you could slip and fall into a trap game kind of situation there. But I don't think, I'm not overly worried about it, but it's just another aspect of here of like, you want to build this up. You want it to be a rivalry. You want it to be a big game. You don't want to make it too big and make it bigger than it actually is. And that's Ben Johnson's job, to keep tabs up. I'm perfectly fine with an F-bomb about the team as long as everything kind of stays. Then nothing happens on the field that ends up making life more difficult for the Chicago Bears. But everything he's done so far has been full speed ahead, so we got no reason to doubt that he won't be able to keep doing it, but we'll keep tabs on it all throughout the coming years here on the Locked On Bears podcast. We've got a playoff game against the Rams to turn our attention to on tomorrow's podcast. It's Crossover Thursday with Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams previewing the matchup. These two teams fairly similar in a lot of ways. And so it's going to be fun to kind of see how those end up playing out. We'll break it all down for you on tomorrow's Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everyday listeners who tune in 5 days a week to get all of your Locked On Bears fix. If you want to join the Everydayers Club and listen to ad-free Locked On Bears, you can go to lockedonbears.supercast.com to find out more, or just keep tuning in the same way you always do, because tomorrow and every weekday, we're going to give you another opportunity to bear down.